video, I am continuing a set of paintings that I wanted to create, following this squirrel that's getting caught trying to steal out of a bird feeder. The first painting that I did is the first video in this set regarding painting a squirrel from a more close-up point of view where the frame of reference is looking kind of past the squirrel at these birds that have recognized that the squirrel is trying to steal from their bird feeder. And this painting is much more about the environment. I'm trying to paint backgrounds and work on them, and I'm not super confident in the foreground of this painting, but I did learn a lot. And I do actually really like the background and the way that it all came together. If watching me sort of figure out what I'm doing as I try to illustrate a full painting and with a foreground, background, and middle ground sounds like something you would enjoy, I'm Rory Flint. Feel free to call me Rory. If you're new around here, hi, hello, how are you? Feel free to let me know in the comments down below. I like to create dope art content and curate a chill atmosphere. And if you're not new around here, what is up, my dudes? Let's get into this video. Starting off, I did a really simple sketch off camera and then decided that I did want to film this. So I went ahead and filmed the process of me refining the sketch and starting to get into the nitty-gritty details of the painting and how I want it to look. I am trying to take a lot into account with these kinds of paintings, and I'm really trying to work off of multiple references, lots of different styles. I'm looking at all kinds of different pieces in my art books. Specifically, I've been referencing my Steven Universe art book a lot because I love the backgrounds in that show, honestly. Not only did it have beautiful color work, but the understanding of how to fracture and break components of not only your subject matter, but the background, and to be able to simplify the background in a way that still registered as, let's say, the sky, but there were these lovely lines that would go through the sky and diagonals and fracturing colors, and it was just a beautiful, beautiful background every time you looked at Steven Universe as you watched it or in the art book. And I wanted to take this sort of use of fragmenting shapes and apply it to, what I'm drawing and the kinds of backgrounds that I'm trying to create, and to see if maybe that would help bring some liveliness and maybe even integrate into my style a little bit better. have chunky clouds in the background, and then I wanted to have a simple base that was overlaid with diagonal lines that sort of gave the sky a little bit of direction and movement. Laying my flat colors down as a base, I move into more detailed color work as I figure out and decide exactly what color I want each thing to be. It's kind of funny going from like certain subjects that I'm very confident in being able to draw and understand, and then going to something like, for me personally, backgrounds and environment studies, which are definitely a lot more foreign and a lot more difficult, and kind of seeing the like drop in skill level. It's always amusing to me when I look at something that I've made and I'm like, so I clearly don't know what I'm doing, and this definitely looks a little bit different than how it might if I did know what I was doing. I think it just really goes to show that art is a skill, and it's a skill that you have to have, like, I guess, I don't know the best way to put it. Like, it's like a skill that you then have, like, multiple skills within, right? So, like, you might be skilled in anatomy, but then might be lacking in environmental art. And so, like, being able to be well-rounded and understanding where your weaknesses are and what you can build off of is, like, really important. Especially if you're trying to create different kinds of art, like not only just environmental work, but then you also want to go into character development, and you also want to go into a little bit of design or maybe animal work, and so there's like so many different subjects and different kinds of art that you can make as an artist, and you can be skilled in one and not the other, and you have to just understand that and learn to pick up the slack and start practicing those subjects and those kinds of paintings until you kind of get the hang of it. And it's always really strange, the learning curve of like, oh, I know how to draw a squirrel, but I'm having a hard time drawing a squirrel, climbing on a post with a tree behind it and a sky and maybe a foreground of like some dirt and some bushes. And like I might be able to draw all of those things individually, but putting them together into a painting, it was kind of amusing to me to see the lack of understanding of what I was doing. I just recently figured out that you can freehand and like free select subjects. So like I knew that like to create, for example, my thumbnails with the letters with gradiating colors, you end up like laying down two flat colors using a Gaussian blur, I think that's how you pronounce that, and combining them, and then you click on the typography, which is laid over top of that now gradiated background, and you use the selection tool and you use automatic and you just kind of like click on the letters. And I didn't realize that like when you freehand the selection, you can just like pick up and like circle parts of your sketch or your painting and move them. I had no idea that I could do that. Like I've definitely seen people do it in like art videos that I've watched, but I didn't know what they were doing, and I just wasn't able to kind of like Google it in the right way that gave me the answer. And so like I literally lost my shit when I was like, all I fucking had to do was circle these, like click freehand and then just circle the subject, and now I can just fuck with it and do whatever I want. Like what? How did I not know that? Oh, I was so aggravated with myself the first time that I learned how to do that. So I was using that tool to kind of figure out if the squirrels were like too big in reference to this large tree in the background, and I was just trying to make sure that the squirrels didn't need to be a little bit smaller. And in the end, I did kind of like the sizing of everything that I had. I'm not trying to say it's perfect, I just liked it. I'm okay with it for like a first go at a very like background heavy painting. You have to start somewhere, I end up taking a second and looking specifically for a small spot illustration that I created for a school project, because I remember really loving the way that the tree looked in that Procreate painting, and I wanted to sort of mimic this feel and look of that same style on this large tree in the background. And that spot illustration was originally sort of inspired by the cover of my National Parks art book, which you can see to the left there. And so I also pulled that out, and I'm sort of like using it as a little bit of reference to figure out how I want to make this tree, how I want to do the lighting, and I don't know, just the best way to make the background interesting. I play around a lot with the lighting of the tree, and I kind of like go back and forth on just about everything that I'm doing. I don't really like focus on one specific part of the painting, complete it, and then go to the next one, because I'm sort of like playing tug of war with all the elements in the painting currently in the video, and that's kind of what I do the whole time, because I'm just sort of trying to figure out what I need to add and what I need to take away to make this painting work. And like, oh my god, the layers in Procreate make working with like background elements, foreground elements, and middle ground elements just so easy. Also, if you notice the tattoo on my left arm, don't freak out. He's peeling because he was brand new, and that's part of the healing process. If you've ever gotten a tattoo, you know and are familiar with that. So don't mind him kind of looking a little crusty, a little peely. I'm taking good care of it, and he ended up healing perfectly. He's on my left arm, and he looks fantastic now, but at the moment he's looking a little crusty. I'm sure through the videos you will see the evolution of my little guy as he heals and develops on my arm. I didn't really have like a strong plan for the foreground. I just sort of wanted it to be similar, sort of like broken up polygonal shapes. I guess polygonal? I'm not sure, but I wanted them to be sort of like harsh inorganic shapes to kind of break up a lot of the fluid brush strokes that I have in the middle ground for the grass, and I just wanted it to look a little structured and to bring a little bit of that sort of dark brown and sort of pale orangey color into the foreground. I sort of wanted it to just look like dirt and sediment and just kind of like stuff. It was definitely interesting kind of going from the first illustration where the squirrel had a lot of details to now working with these two squirrels that I needed to kind of make look like squirrels and wanted to add some detail to, but also needed to kind of understand that the squirrels themselves weren't really like... They were the focus of the painting, but they weren't going to be the focus of the painting because they were super detailed. And striking that balance of like, okay, they're squirrels, they look like finished doodles, but they're not like over-rendered was definitely a little bit of a struggle because there was just so little space to work with on each individual squirrel. And I've never really had that problem because I'm normally drawing, animal subjects much larger and as a more detailed focus of the painting. I absolutely love this chunky texture brush that you'll see me kind of start to throw at a lot of different paintings lately. I'm just really vibing with it. I think it makes my paintings look pretty dope, and I love the just sort of like subtle texture overlay that you can then sort of like make more present if you don't want to cover it up, and you can mess with the opacity, and it's just, it's such a nice brush. All of the brushes that I use are from Max Packs, so I use the retro pack and I use the watercolor pack. This painting was almost exclusively created with the retro pack because at the moment I'm really vibing with the more opaque, soft pastels, and gouache brushes. Literally the only brush that I use from like the preset brushes that my pad came with is Syrup. Syrup is such a weird brush because like the pressure sensitivity on that brush is absolutely fucking wild, but then like it's really, really clean and crisp. So for like small details, and like specifically I'm using it for the really subtle lines on the tree of like the reflective light and like the deep lines of the shadows on the other side of the tree, it's just absolutely like amazing for that. But then like if you like blow it up, it's incredibly pixelized, and not to mention it has just like, as I mentioned, just crazy like pressure sensitivity where like it goes from like a nice thin strand to all of a sudden it's this giant fucking blob, and I'm like, what is happening? I end up going with another chunky texture brush, and it's like some sort of chunky pastel brush. I think it's just like natural pastel in the Retro Max Pack, and I sort of overlay that over top of the background and some of the foreground elements to make it look like the lighting is really streaming into this like part of this valley or ravine. I'm actually super stoked with the way that turned out. I really like it. And the foreground, like, whoa, it's totally turning around now. I actually really like it. I forgot that I changed it and kind of made it this really textured, like, aggressive sort of hillish pile of dirt. I take a good bit of time and I focus on the smaller details, trying to see what else I can see needs work as I start to finish the piece. I want to push the contrast a little bit more. I go in with a deeper purpley color and I start really trying to be a little bit more aggressive with my shadows so that the whole thing doesn't look too washed out. And I eventually end up adding my line work, where I actually really like the line work, except for, I think, the tree in the foreground. I feel like the thickness of the brush is just a little bit too much, and I needed to make it a bit thinner so the tree didn't look just so in your face. But I don't know. We're not quite at that part yet, so we'll see how I feel about it as I watch the entire thing sort of happen. And this is the part in the video where I bring in that purple color. I just felt like the lighting was getting lost and it just was washing everything out and it needed another color. And I thought, you know, this like pale, cool toned lavender would look beautiful and really like go well with the pale, soft green that I've been using in the background. And it did. While it like flowed really nicely with the pale green, it also stood out, which was exactly what I was looking for. This is definitely the part in the video where everything starts to come together. I'm going through and trying to figure out what parts of the piece still need to have a little bit of added lighting. I'm kind of adding a little bit of like ring lighting to the squirrels and to the tree just to kind of make it look more realistic and make the like subjects and different like things in the painting actually look like they're existing in the same sort of illustration together. And I'm trying to make sure that the lighting is looking as realistic as I know how to make it. I really do a lot of work on the details on the tree, trying to kind of figure out how to make it look, I don't know, just to give it a little bit more of an oomph, you know? I want it to look really cool and very interesting, and I want it to sort of draw your attention to the squirrels, and I'm like really, really happy with the way this thick tree in the background turns out. And I also wanted to hide away, you know, the small little V's and dots are like the cluster of birds coming to, you know, see what the squirrels are up to because they are stealing from their bird feeder. In this specific illustration, the birds are more of like a secondary element, where in the first one, you know, the way that I have the frame set up with the squirrel tail and the squirrel itself sort of like, literally framing the entire piece, it kind of guides your eye immediately to this open space in the middle where the birds are. Where for this illustration, the birds are a little bit more tucked away and they're not as easy to spot. It's always so satisfying to see the piece come together through the line art. I just love it every time, and I always enjoy this part of the process. I'm really happy with the squirrels and the minimal detail that I was able to put into them, but I still felt like made them look like squirrels, and specifically that dark one looked like the squirrel that I have in the first illustration, and that was really exciting. And here's when I think I add just a little bit too thick of line work to the tree in the foreground, and I don't know, we'll see, as the whole thing comes together if I still feel that way, but I don't know, I just wasn't as big of a fan as the chunky line art, and if I was ever going to get to a point where I could print this piece and sell it, I would definitely make the line work a little bit thinner. I hope you guys enjoyed this more relaxed video. Normally I go into this with a little bit of a theme in mind for something that I want to talk about, and I was really just trying to focus on not only the painting, but my process as I'm learning to draw backgrounds, definitely heavily reliant on reference and inspiration to kind of figure out where I want to go from here. But for now, if you've stuck around to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully I'll get the chance to talk to you in the next one. Bye!